All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to KMT's next workshop on how to best interact with Copilot in the Teams meeting environment. So thank you for joining us today in your probably lunch hour. My name is Sarah Wheaton and I'm an account manager here at KMT. Warmly welcoming you all. What we do here is we'll just wait for a couple of more people to join us. We've already got a lot of eager beavers that are ready and waiting, but we'll just wait a couple of minutes to just get another group joining us. But today is going to be a really exciting workshop, one that I think will be really powerful for all of the folks that currently have Copilot and or those folks that are interested in getting Copilot, because this is really where the powerhouse of Copilot comes into effect, I think, or particularly in my area of the business that I work in, which is a sales and account management. But there, as you've seen in the past, we've had so many great examples of how to use Copilot in the Microsoft suite. So today is focusing all on Teams meeting recaps and how to use the action points that form out of Copilot. So again, thank you to those that have joined us nice and early. We do have a great guest speaker coming up, so I'll just give a bit of an overview of our partner joining us today. So Aidan Clifford's going to be joining us and taking us through the best way to use Copilot in Teams. Aidan is from Pax8 and they are our strategic partnership with Microsoft. And very knowledgeable chap, as we've seen if you've been following along with these workshops that we've had so far this year. I think this is about our third one. So I'm really just padding now before we truly open the event. But just to give you an idea, we have got a couple of workshops already behind us in this suite of Microsoft products, and you can find those on the KMT website. So if you go head to the KMT website and then look at resources under webinars, you'll see the on-demand content there at the ready for you.
But as Sarah mentioned, my name's Aidan. I'm the Microsoft Alliance Manager for Pax8 here in APAC. Get to work really closely with the KMT team on everything Microsoft pretty much. So both myself and my team are focused on how we can get the most out of our investment and the most out of our experience with Microsoft technology across the board. I previously worked at Microsoft for a few years, going back a little bit now, and have been within the technology channel ever since. So have about sort of a 10, 12 experience within this technology set. One of the great things, but one of the challenges is that everything's always changing. So we need to make sure that we can follow the bouncing ball, get the most out of those experiences to not only protect ourselves from a cybersecurity perspective, but then also to get the value out of from the productivity benefits that come along the way as well. So what I might do is to get things underway. I'll just take control of the screen so I can just start sharing my slides here, and I'll just go through to what the agenda is for today. Awesome. Thanks for letting me know that you're able to hear me there. If there are any challenges, do let us know. We'll try and resolve in the background as well. So really, I just have a couple of slides just for a couple of minutes. Want to really focus the majority of the time on seeing some hands-on demos when it comes to Copilot within Teams. But I do just want to set a bit of a baseline just so that everyone's on the same page when it comes to that Copilot opportunity. I don't want to go through some of the successes or some of the hygiene we see when it comes to being successful with our prompting and just the understanding of what Copilot in Teams is capable of. And then let's get into the demos, because that's the bit which really helps the rubber hit the road when it comes to people getting the value out of their Copilot and AI investments. So for those of you who've got some experience within generative AI, so generative AI being the usage of large language models, so effectively using natural language to have a interaction with an AI model to then receive a large language model or a natural language or other response back to us. You may have more experience with ChatGPT, maybe Google Gemini, maybe Grok on Twitter, or a whole bunch of different options that are out in the marketplace today. So why are we talking specifically about Microsoft 365 Copilot? Well, the two advantages that we have specifically, which are unique to Microsoft's AI endeavors, is that it utilizes your data where it probably already is. Within COVID and then beyond, we saw a lot of digital transformation where people moved their businesses and their data to the Microsoft 365 suite of technologies. So if you are utilizing Microsoft 365, your data is within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, so able to speak to Microsoft 365 Copilot out of the box. No migrations required, and it's able to utilize that data to get those productivity benefits straight away. The next layer of value which you're able to get from that, which means there's a smaller adoption curve, is that it's also natively integrated to the Microsoft 365 apps, which if you're like me, it's going back a little bit of time now, but as long as you've been a student or as long as you've been in the workforce, chances are you've been using Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, etc. For quite a few years. So if we're able to bring that new integration and that new experience through AI into those classic apps where your data already resides, I think we're quite a few steps ahead of if we had to go through using a new technology moving our data to where it needs to be, and then utilizing a new app function or a new application on top of that as well. So we really start to see a speed to market and a speed to the return on investment for the costs that it takes to get our users up and running with AI. If we look specifically at Copilot in Teams, really Teams is when we see the speed to action or the speed to results, it probably is the first cab off the rank as far as the Copilot integrations that people are seeing value from. I think since over the past few years, we are seeing more and more Teams meetings popping into our calendar than ever before. So if we've got the ability to summarize those meetings either live during that meeting or afterwards, that's going to provide a huge amount of productivity gains, not only from the capture of that information, the capture of that knowledge, but in the way that we're able to fully immerse ourselves in our meetings, knowing that we've got our AI partner in the back that is capturing that information for us. So we can just focus on the task at hand and the collaboration at hand as well. But it doesn't just stop there. It's not just purely a summarization tool. You can then integrate or then participate with Copilot to ask it to then format that information in different ways. So create tables of pros and cons from different topics that have been covered, understanding what decisions were made during that meeting, recommending next steps from either what has been in the meeting itself or utilizing Copilot to come up with those suggestions itself. And then you're able to use those summaries and those draft meeting follow-ups to then put them into emails, into meetings, and then get those follow-ups faster than ever before. So really speeding up the time to action and also increasing the effectiveness of the information that's captured within those Teams meetings as well. But if we look to some fundamentals of how you can utilize generative AI as a whole, so particularly for Copilot, let's look at prompting. So prompting is really the natural language that you're using and inputting into your generative AI tool in order to get a response back. And it is a bit of an art and a bit of a science at the same time. So Microsoft has developed these key guidelines to help make sure that the inputs you put in there are going to be as close as possible to what the outcome that you want, or at least providing a valuable outcome that you can then utilize and keep on moving. So if we think about the goal of what you want to achieve from your output as a whole. So from this instance, what response do you want from Copilot? Generating 3 to 5 bullet points. We then think about what is the context of where it needs to then look for that information. What is the need and who is involved within that prompt as well? So 3 to 5 bullet points to prepare for a meeting with client X to discuss their phase 3 brand campaign in this case. Then point Copilot, what's the source of the information we want to utilize? So it doesn't have to then scour your entire M365 environment. It can be a lot faster and a lot more pointed to get the information that you need. So in this case, focus on emails and Teams chat since June. So utilizing that time reference there as well to be a bit more specific. And then expectations. How do we want Copilot to speak to us? So it's then going to reduce the amount of time that you need to adjust those outputs before you send them to the next place. So use simple language so I can get up to speed quickly. You can say like bullet points using formal language, whatever you need to make sure it's speaking to the next audience most effectively. So if you can
one of my favorite things, Aidan, is popping in there in Australian English when I'm writing responses, because then it just completely gets rid of all of those American Zs in there that bug me to no end. So it's one of my side tips as a user, heavy user of Copilot.
No, perfect. No, great input there, Sarah. I don't even do that one, so I'll be utilizing that for the rest of the day. Because as you'll see, I've got a few Teams messages and a few emails to catch up on when I share my screen. So that'll be definitely come in handy to make sure I don't have to go through do that manual editing. And to Sarah's point, if we can then figure out these incremental ways to improve your prompts, it's going to save you minutes and hours on the back end. So the overall total impact of Copilot or the total impact of AI at your organization can become like really dramatically larger, and that really starts to snowball on the impact you can drive there. That's the end of what I want to show from a slide perspective. So I do want to just go through and show some demos into how this actually works. It's where we see most end users actually have the impact of Copilot and AI. It is really learning by doing. So hopefully there'll be a few scenarios that I can display during this meeting that you're then able to take away, get a Copilot license for yourself, and really start to activate those and get the benefits straight away. So I'll just share my screen. I'll just be one moment. Awesome. So if I could just get a confirmation, Sarah, that you're able to see my Teams environment.
I can see you and I on the Teams meeting, yes.
Oh, whoops, I will share the other one. Hopefully this one shows up instead. One moment. Is that a little bit better?
This way, there's always a lag.
Yes.
Now I can see your workspace. Yes.
We've got our production manager in the back end. Thanks, Charlie. So what I was able to do is one of the benefits of Copilot, but also one of the challenges when it comes to these sort of practical demos, is Copilot is so heavily immersed within your business information and your personal information on the back end that it can be quite challenging to display these demos without going into the weeds of what people are sending to me through as emails and messages. So what I did is I recruited those of you who know some of the members of the Paxate KMT Alliance team. Is I've got Randy. I recruited him yesterday afternoon to go through a dummy call with me to talk through some of the topics we're covering today, but then also talk about some hypothetical projects that we need to follow up on to really show some of these features within Teams. So what we've had is we had this short meeting yesterday afternoon. So since I have my Copilot license, I open up that, that calendar invite and that meeting within my calendar, and this is what I just get to see straight out of the box. So one of the benefits of Copilot now is there are some new updates where you will receive automated recaps and automated notes if you turn on the facilitator functionality before you need to do any work. So there is an automatic capture of the AI notes so that you can start to get these benefits without lifting a finger. So if we look at this Teams call with my friend Randy yesterday afternoon, I get this automatic recap straight out of the box where I get a pretty quick summary of what was covered. So I get to go through, we discussed the facilitator feature within Copilot, which was news to Randy. So I get to enable him on that one. We go through a task of saying we're going to create a new annual leave policy, which is just a bit of a made up thing for the pretend company we were having yesterday. And then we need to follow up with different stakeholders about different projects, Project ABC and creatively also named XYZ. So obviously very meaningful meetings that we were having yesterday afternoon and projects we need to follow up on, but just goes to show it was capturing the information relatively effectively. But then if I scroll down further, I've also got a page, which I'll show in a moment, to capture this and interact with this later. And then also have automated meeting notes, which just go through some of the high level things that we discussed. I've also got some tasks that were automatically covered in a table here. But what I will do, just to show a bit more about how you're probably going to interact with Copilot straight away, is we want to go ahead and look at the full recap of this meeting. I'll just give that a moment to load up. You'll probably see some of our lovely faces here at PackSet, or actually focused on the title screen, so lucky for you guys. But what we can start to see by breaking down to the detail of within this meeting, some of the high level things of where you can start to see when were you speaking, when were your colleagues speaking, and just get a bit more detail from a top level. We can see that from the interaction, myself and Randy had a pretty back and forth conversation after I generally set the scene at the start. If you click on these buttons here, they will take you to those anchor points within that meeting. So if you generally know that halfway through, I want to focus in on what contributions did I make to the meeting, re-listen to that, or I really want to hear from what my manager had to say at certain points, you can click on these moments and they will take you through to that chapter within that call. So just from a high level there. It'll also do an automated job to look at the high level topics that were covered. So functionality of Copilot in team meetings, which we discussed at the start, and then these hypothetical project management and funding discussions after that as well. And they will automate it into chapters if we do want to go through and then automatically click to those moments in time. So pretty handy just from a high level. And then we can start to see some of these automated Copilot notes that have been generated in a bit more long form than we saw previously. You can see the different topics pretty clearly labeled from a subheading and then short detail perspective. And you can start to see how it's broken down into discussing the Copilot features, this annual leave policy that we discussed that we we're going to make up for this pretend company, resources need. So Randy said he needed more resources. So I'll see what I can do for Randy there. And then we have to talk about some of the follow-ups for these meetings. So this is actually pretty new. Previously, in the first version of Copilot, you would need to go through and conduct some prompts to get this to come through and portray to you. So Microsoft is always working across the board with everything Copilot to try and find these most common use cases and automate them for you versus you needing to go through and click the buttons, put the prompts in. So saving even more time, which is something that you may not see as being an evolution if you haven't been within the product set for a long time. You can also go through, click on mentions just to see when my name was mentioned specifically, or if you're a bit dubious of the information that Copilot has captured, it is all in reference to a full transcript, which you can go through and download. And when it loads up, you can then reference through here via search to see where different topics are covered, just to verify that the information is accurate, which is a pretty good behavior to get into across the board when it comes to any AI usage, is verifying that information before you send it on to the next party. So just something to be aware of. However, to really have a look at Copilot itself, we can go to the top right-hand corner here and open Copilot. Once this opens up, the easiest way to really get started within Teams, as you can see, I was having a bit of a play around with this before, but the best way to get started is to go to the bottom right-hand corner, click View Prompts, because what Microsoft does across the board in the Copilot experiences is they suggest prompts to really get you started before you've kind of developed which prompts are most effective to you, the ways that you want to style your usage of AI. Really utilizing Microsoft to show what other users are doing is a great way to get started and get that value straight away. If I use pretty much the one that I do use the most is recap the meeting as a whole. We can go through, enter that prompt. It'll scour through that transcript and meeting notes that we had from earlier, and it'll start to generate what those key topics were. So we'll just let that build out, and it should be pretty close to the meeting notes that we see on the left-hand side of the page as well. Awesome. So we can see that's there. We can then export that to Word if we wanted to then participate with that text, change it in a different way so we can then send it via email. So that is, they are putting a lot of shortcuts into the experience now, or we can then copy and paste that as well. If we want to go through to listing any action items, probably the most important part once you've got up to speed with what occurred during the meeting, let's see what we're able to get from here. One of the things I really like about this is it does automatically assign who it believes the stakeholder is that it applies to. So Randy's going to get started on the annual leave policy. I'm going to try and get him some raw resources because he thinks he's overworked. And then we've got different projects that we need to then follow up on to then get commitment from stakeholders for project ABC. And I think you get some funding finance approval for XYZ. So really, really meaningful stuff for myself and Randy yesterday. What we can also do is, so this is all very text-based. You may want to format it slightly differently. So some of the ways you can then start to integrate with Copilot is by using some of these sort of top-level prompts, but then just manipulating them a little bit to try and make sure that that export is as meaningful as possible from the get-go. So I can say into Copilot, I'm always polite to AI, so please recap this meeting. Recap the meeting and list any action items. So what we did previously, but then I'll say, please list any action items in a table. So I want a table format. In a table and assign any stakeholders. So I'm kind of just reformatting how we've asked for this previously, but I am trying to make sure it's in the format that I want to share next of all. So let's see how we can then sort of reformat this one. So the meeting recap shouldn't be in a table. Hopefully the action items are in a table. We'll see that it's able to listen to what I've done there.
And one of the things that I'm doing in the background here, Aidan, is sort of following along, because I have Copilot already, following along and just navigating similar prompts that you're doing to help me practice, because I've never thought to do things in a table before. So if you do have Copilot and you want to try and workshop this truly, you could have it open in the next screen and do similarly. While it's generating, can I pose a question to you that's coming from Anna, Aidan?
Yes, of course.
Okay, it's a quick one. It's an easy one. Does this mean now that all team meetings are essentially recorded? And what happens when you don't want the meeting recorded?
Yes, so great question. Copilot only is active when you turn it on. So in order to utilize Copilot within your team's meetings, you either need to activate the transcript if you just want the transcript captured, or for the meeting to be recorded. It doesn't turn on until you switch it on. So it is really good sort of etiquette if you are turning on Copilot, just to make sure everyone on the call is aware that it is going to be recorded, but no, it doesn't automatically switch on.
Hopefully that answers your question, Anna. If it doesn't and you want some more nuanced response from Aidan, do pop it in the chat.
Also just to kind of just to clarify that one as well, Copilot is only able to be used on the users within that tenancy. So say, for example, we're using the KMT tenancy today, not the Pax8 one. So I'm unable to use Copilot on this call. So that information belongs to KMT as part of that call, so it does stay on their side of the fence. So that's another way that Microsoft looks to protect the users when it comes to that AI information protection, because that meeting is taken within the server boundary and the security setup that they've already got. Awesome. So what we're able to do, I just wanted to kind of convey that there are different ways to then use the same information, but then to reshape it so maybe it is a bit more useful straight away or in a faster cycle to then get to the next stage. So what I really like about this is not only has it put the action items in a table, but it has listed the action item, the owner, and then the deadline from what it was able to pick up. So I would then be able to copy and paste that or open it in Excel because it is in a table already. And then I can go through and just verify that these deadlines are correct and adjust accordingly from there. So what it does from here, you can see there's more suggestions around summarize the discussion about the facilitator feature in detail. I might just click this one for the last one before we move on, just to show how specific you can get around the conversation that we have. And the facilitator feature is one of the ways that Microsoft is looking to improve the Copilot or evolve the Copilot deployment within Teams, just to automate a lot of these functionalities. You can see I was doing most of the talking when it came to this one, but it is just discussing around introduction to facilitator, an overview within there. You can use Copilot to then augment that to give a bit more of an explanation. Real-time note-taking, voice prompt inquiry. We're talking about the integration of voice into Copilot, which I believe is on the Microsoft roadmap, but you can get third-party tools to assist with it today, or utilize Copilot on your phone as another way to do that. But just to go to show you can be very specific with these requests, and Microsoft will utilize Copilot to go into that transcript to generate from there.
Right. Do you have time for a couple more on-the-spot questions, Aidan?
Yeah, no, of course. No, perfect.
So a couple of questions. I've got two. I've got one from Bernadette. It is just confirming, in order to record the meeting, you have to have initiated it. So it won't just automatically record. It's a bit blended back into that previous question. To record the meeting, and I'm assuming when you ask that, Bernadette, that you mean the actual video recording. The question is, you have to have initiated it.
Yes. So when you click on to record this meeting, I can't remember the exact terminology because we do have it on, so I can't see the button in front of me right now, but it will be to turn on the meeting recording as a whole or to turn on transcription capture.
Yes, I can see it from my end because I think it's because we've got the Copilot happening here. So you would do the three dots, the more drop down to record and transcribe. So it would be that you've turned on Copilot, but then in order to record the meeting, you can select recording, and you can also stop recording partway through a meeting if you wish. So you can have it on and then turn it off. So say, for example, you've got, I know we do this sometimes, we have a client meeting, it's recording to be able to power some notes or they wish for us to be able to share it with them. And then we can turn it off and have some closing comments just around how the meeting went. So that's really useful. I have another, hopefully that answered your question, Bennett. And then I have another question that's come in. This one is from Amanda. Silly question, how do you turn it on in the meeting? I think I just covered that then with a little bit of a step-by-step. Just to preface it though, you need to have Copilot license attached to you as a user in order for you to turn on Copilot. So you can attach your Copilot license to any of your standard licensing, Microsoft Business Standard licensing, and then you will then have the Copilot functionality available to you. Have I spoken out of turn there, Aidan? I know you're the expert and I'm the lowly account manager at KMT.
Well, I wouldn't agree with those. I wouldn't agree with those taggings, but no, 100% correct. And Charlie just put a screenshot into the chat as well, just to show where you're able to do that. So just really clarify, you do need to turn on. So that is one of the behaviors that we're trying to train here at Pax8 is to make sure you turn your transcription or recording on where appropriate, because that is the biggest behavioral change to getting the value from Teams is making sure that you're turning it on and changing it. So because it does take that initial activation. But to kind of reinforce what you're just mentioning there, Sarah, like when I'm having one-to-ones with the team, obviously there may be small personal information in there that wants to remain private or whatever the context may be. So we might have Copilot on for the first bit just to talk business and talk about the ways that we're going to work within the Microsoft team, and then just turn it off if there's something that you want to make sure that stays without being transcribed or captured as well. So these are the ways that you're able to be flexible, but just making sure that people on the call do know that it is being captured, but it does need to be switched on in order to utilize that Copilot functionality. So hopefully that works into how everyone wants to appropriately use it from there.
All right. There's one more question.
Yep.
The recurring meetings. This one's in from Jen. How would you manage actions and notes in terms of ongoing actions in a recurring meeting? I think this is a really great one, and I'm not sure if you've got it ahead of you in a demonstration on how to access the notes from a recurring meeting. So you have a weekly sales meeting or a weekly, similar meeting. I'm trying to think of other people's roles outside my own.
No, perfect question. So from the way that we utilize it here at Pax8, we do need to switch on the transcription or recording for each of those recurring meetings. So we're unable to switch it on as an always on factor for that recurring meeting, but those notes will stay within there as a series. So we're able to say, please recap all the notes from this meeting, and it'll go through the transcription that has been captured from that entire series. That's a good thing for me to look into is what's the time limit on that, because I'm pretty sure it would only go back, series are only able to be alive for 6 months anyway. So that would be probably the limitation there. But that's where we get back to those prompting ingredients that I was showing earlier, making sure that you are putting those parameters on when you want those meetings to apply. There's been times that I put recap this meeting and I ended up with 3 months worth of information from that meeting. So I had to be like, please recap the meeting from the past 24 hours or just from Monday, whatever the most appropriate way to utilize that is. But then it's a really good feature of say, please recap last week's meeting, whatever my manager was discussing. So you don't have to then go out to an external source or go into Stream where these meetings are captured or into your calendar to try and get that specific timing. So you do need to turn it on each time. Those notes are consolidated together. And so then you'd be using your prompting ingredients to get the specific information that's most appropriate for them.
Do you have any comments on this same sort of topic then about the new functionality around following a meeting rather than attending the meeting and how you can use Copilot in those instances? Or is there a way to use Copilot in those instances?
Yeah, so the way that I haven't been using that one practically. I don't know if it's been put into our tenancy just yet. I think it's still in public preview, but I might need to double check that one. But follow the meeting is really designed if you're unable to attend a meeting, making sure that if you're declining it, it's disappearing from your calendar. So then you have to try and navigate to where that meeting has been captured to then utilize Copilot. But you can say that I declined this meeting, but I am following it to make sure it stays where you're able to access it and then utilizing the transcription from there. And I believe you also get an auto summary of that meeting if you don't attend. So there's some automated features in order to get that information from that meeting you follow. You would activate that within Outlook or within Teams. So that would be where you do that within that meeting invite. But I haven't been using that one practically as yet because I don't think we've rolled that one out here at Pax8, but I believe it's pretty imminent to when that goes GA. Unless you guys have it at KMT. That's just something that I missed from the side.
I'm curious. I think I might. I'll have to have a little bit of a play because
Uh,
I am following meetings. I haven't really done much with the Copilot access afterwards. Um, And I have a couple more questions just
yeah,
around.
perfect.
So Burnett just has a couple of follow-up questions. So if you could recall, her original question was confirming in order to record the meeting, you have to have initiated it,
Yep.
which you said, yeah, you have to have it initiated. So you're the one that's turning on the recording. But then maybe we misconstrued the question because follow-up question is, but I have to have been the one that sent the invite. So is it that Burnett can turn on the recording because she's the initiator of the meeting? If Bennett is attending a meeting from somebody else, are they then still able to turn on Copilot recording transcription to be able to access the notes?
Yeah, so just to clarify for that one, Burnett, so thanks for taking the time to clarify that one as well. What I meant from my earlier comments is you do need to be part of that internal business environment to utilize Copilot on meetings that you're hosting. You don't need to be the one who sent the invite. So say, for example, Charlie and Sarah, both from KMT, Charlie may have shared a meeting invite, Sarah may have jumped on, but since they're from the same company that sent that invite, so it's within the KMT tenancy or environment, Sarah is able to activate Copilot from there. Me as Aiden from Pax8, I'm able to join the meeting, but I'm not able to activate Copilot on there because I don't have access to the information that's being captured within that KMT environment. It's one of the ways that Microsoft is navigating the fair usage of AI applications to information. So this is just making sure that that information stays within the KMT service boundary, just because it is seen as a security and compliance requirement, so that I'm not able to come as an outsider and access their internal information. So that's how that's navigated. So just if someone from your company sends the invite, you with a Copilot license from the same company will be able to use it.
Yeah, great. And I think there's a bit of a race at our end whenever we're on meetings internally about who presses the Copilot license, because only one person can press Copilot when you're on a meeting, even if it's internally at KMT. And yet you can share the meeting notes or access them otherwise, but there's a bit of ownership over who can be the one to turn Copilot on. Has that changed? Is that still the
Yeah,
situation?
no, I think we'll have a look at how that's set up from your perspective, because the intention for Copilot is for individual users to be able to utilize it in the background without blocking access. So it's not like the old dial-up days where if someone's on the phone, someone's on the internet, it kind of blocks the access to one or the other. It should be able to be like multiple users should be able to use it at the same time to give that personalized response back. So we can have a look.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so let's take that
So,
offline. That's for KMT. I have another question here from Lauren, and I haven't pre-read it. It's a bit of a longer one. I'm going to read it out straight for you, if that's okay, Aidan.
yep.
This is from Lauren, we're considering how many licenses to get, and one of our directors has asked, could some staff members have the pro version to create custom versions for the broader team to use, ? With the next paragraph saying, I believe that what she's getting at here is that the idea of having a handful of people could use Copilot for the greater benefit of the organisation beyond being given the meeting notes. Is there anything a non-licensed person might benefit from someone else on the team having Copilot? So could the organisation still benefit from having a few users with Copilot and then be able to share the information around, or are we missing out on something if we don't all have the Copilot license? I think.
Yeah, no, it's I think that's another great question. So thank you, Lauren. I think for the consideration of how you can slice up, because I know that there is a cost to Copilot licensing, obviously, so we need to make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck in that regards. But how I would sort of think about it, you're unable to get the pro version as a business user. That's kind of the first thing to cover off. Pro version of Copilot is only available to family and consumer-based subscriptions. We get that question all the time because it's a little bit cheaper than Copilot for Microsoft 365 for business. So ultimately, the options that you would have within your business would be Copilot, the free version, which is a ChatGPT, compete with better data protection. So it gives people the opportunity to use Copilot on the internet, basically. You then have an option to get Copilot for Microsoft 365 licensing for your users to then do things like we're seeing in Teams or in PowerPoint or in Excel or within Word, like we've seen in previous workshops. But there's also a third option, which I'd reach out to the KMT team about, and it's through use of things like agents, where you're able to then create a specific Copilot application for certain use cases. So it would be along the lines of, say, summarize all of my emails and send me an update daily, and then giving your users an option to do very specific tasks. So really creating ring fences around the application of AI within your environment. So Copilot for Microsoft 365, pretty much the entire environment, Copilot for Chat, the free version, just on the internet. And there is a middle ground now. So I would have a chat to KMT about that. To answer your question, though, around the best way to use licensed and non-licensed people, really, if there is someone who is in probably a manager who's in all of the meetings who can capture it and then disseminate that information to the greater team, or just figuring out what are the highest value meetings or highest value use cases you have in the organization. Say, for example, marketing can do marketing campaigns really quickly, or finance needs it to analyze data. that would be how I'd start to think about the total impact from that Copilot license and the use cases of where you get it out of that. But it does get a little bit tricky because you want to make sure it's the person who's pretty much got their finger across, finger in all the pies across the organisation. So it's a bit tricky.
And I think the other thing you could consider, particularly if you're just starting out, branching out into Copilot, this is what one of the recommendations I make for some of my clients is that you might want to put the Copilot business license across 3 or 4 users. You are committed to a 12-month license, even if you pay monthly, but you're committed annually. The license can be shifted between users mid-year. So it's a simple ticket, I know, at KMT for us to be able to transfer the license from one user to another. There's no fee in doing that. So you could have it sat with someone for about 3 months just to get a feel for it and get the benefits, and then share it to somebody else. That could help you develop your user case to your manager to be able, or directors to be able to get an understanding about how many licenses might be effective in your business, and then move forward from there.
Awesome. And just I saw Lauren just had a follow-up question around the cost of agents. So agents is a consumption-based model. So it's based on how many people use it, basically, and it's fractions of cents or cents per request, depending on how heavy the compute is in the background to perform the task. So that would be a conversation to have with KMT. We can come in from the Pax8 side as well to help shape up the costs, but that would be very much based on a single use case that we could figure out from where you're trying to unlock the benefit of AI across the organization. But it isn't from a per license perspective. It can be, adding up. And it's where Microsoft is applying a lot of their resources in the near future. So maybe that could be something we can add to the schedule in future months.
Sounds like a good, interesting topic, actually. All right. Now we'll let you get back to your content.
Awesome. So where I wanted to go from here is just kind of showing some of the automated features that we do get from Copilot in Teams. So whilst we've seen how we can interact with the transcription live from these automated notes that we saw earlier, I also mentioned that it was going to create a file with us, which we can then collaborate on to get started. So this is when it starts to come into Microsoft Loop. I won't go into this too much today, but it just goes to show how Microsoft is making an automated way for us to then go in and see the Teams call that we participated on, some of these meeting notes that were then captured, some of the follow-up tasks that were automatically captured as well, but it's also given us a platform to then automatically start and then participating in it. We don't need to copy and paste to go to a new environment. We go into these things called loops, which are a collaborative space for us to work with our wider team on these follow-up items. So really trying to bring all of these components together. We can then copy and paste more information in here to get started, but I just wanted to show that this is a functionality of where Copilot in Teams is going, because it's a forever changing ecosystem. So it's great to have these calls to make sure we stay up to date. From what I wanted to go here to kind of close things out, sorry, I just need to hover away from that for a second. See if I can move it. There we go. Always gets me every time. But what I wanted to do is just go into Outlook to show how we're then able to then work with that meeting to then say do a follow-up with the team that we wanted to work with following that meeting. So if I go to the new version of Outlook, which I'm just using the browser version of Copilot and my apps today, I've got Copilot in the top right-hand corner. What I can do is then click on the drop-down menu of here. So within Outlook, I've got a few different options of how to work within this environment. I can then click on chat. And what it'll bring me is an option to then work across my Copilot for Microsoft 365 environment. So what I want to do here basically is then say, similar to our prompts from before, please write an email my recent meeting. So I'll keep it pretty basic, but what I wanted to just show here is how I'm able to tag in that meeting that I had recently. So what I had was, I'll just write demo, just to kind of hopefully brings it up before too long. And this is my demo call that I had with Randy yesterday. So through / or utilizing the buttons down the bottom, I'm able to tag either documents, people, or meetings that I've previously had within Microsoft 365. And so it's able to then bring that experience across into different apps, because logically, if we're going to have that meeting, there's going to be follow-up items. I probably need to email someone to follow that up. If I just then click on that, what I'll do is just generate hopefully a quick summary. Oh, maybe I need to reset the magic of demos. Let's see how we go. What I will do is I will just try that again. I've had these browsers open for a little while, so sometimes they can time out, but I'll just be one moment, see what we're able to do. Hopefully it's combing through something. Perfect. If it doesn't work first time, then we can try again. Perfect. So we've got our summary of the Teams demo call from here with Randy yesterday. I didn't put any extra parameters on the details that I want to be within there, so that's what we'd likely do to get it into that email format. But in the interest of time, we can see during this meeting, I spoke to Randy about the topics that we've covered off a few times now. What I can do is I can copy and paste this, bring this across to a new email, and then I can click draft with Copilot, say, rewrite this, or I'll see if I can paste it through, just make it a little bit. Back to Copilot, apologies. I'll say rewrite this text as a professionally worded email. Testing out my typing skills this afternoon.
It's always harder when people are watching you.
So we'll see if it's able to decipher this. I would need to do a little bit of reformatting just to make sure, but Copilot should be able to comb through this and just write a pretty good email of what I needed to cover off. And awesome. Quick as anything. Hello team, I hope this email finds you well. I want to share a summary of the Teams call from this certain time. During the meeting, we engaged with a discussion about Teams. Perfect, so we can keep that. It looks like it's a pretty good way. We can go through different functionalities of, say, putting that into a table, putting it into dot points with timeframes and those sort of things to get started. But fundamentally, if we think about the process we've gone through, I've had it in my meeting, I've been able to summarize it, understand the information from that, see the stakeholders it applies to, then jump across to Outlook, type up a really quick email, and then send that out to the team straight away. So if you think about how long that would usually take to write up those notes manually, to then bring those across and write out those emails, I've probably taken like a half-hour minimum job just down to a couple of minutes. So really good benefit and productivity gain back in my pocket. So from that perspective, I think that was the vast majority of here. Probably the last thing I wanted to show, just through the power of Outlook, we can also go through and just utilize some of the coaching functionality. So some of the jokes I have around the coaching functionality is you can write a really angry email, use the coaching functionality, and then it'll try and make it a bit more professional and a bit more kindly worded afterwards. But what we can see is we can use the coaching functionality to see how it's going to suggest we update this email as well, because Copilot is always working with the different algorithms of what it sees as being a well-received email, just within the large language models as well. So we can use them, we don't have to use them, but it is always good to get an extra set of eyes before we send things off, especially if it is a challenging email, as I was mentioning, and we can start to see, we can use more friendly and balanced tones through some of these examples here. You can see the reader sentiment, just adding thanks for your attention, just a bit more kind, and then a bit more clarity around some of the actions within here too. So what I might do just to help visualize this is I will just apply all of the suggestions here. It'll then draft us up for us. We can then have a bit of a read through. Probably looks a little bit more effectively written with some summaries of the action items than before. So it's done a good job for us here. We can either insert it below to do further comparison. We can dismiss it if we don't like it, but I'm pretty happy with this, so I'll just replace that. And so then all of a sudden we've gone to a more effectively written email based on all of those benefits that we've seen previously through utilizing Copilot in Teams. So I think that's pretty much it from my side as far as this demo. So I did go for a little bit longer, but hopefully it's captured a lot of information that everyone was looking to gather, because utilizing Copilot in Teams, as I said before, is one of the fastest ways that we see users get benefit from their investment in Copilot, and really just starts to make things tangible as to how you can then take it into Outlook, take it into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc., because it is a massive ecosystem of how Copilot for Microsoft 365 works across your apps and your data. And yeah, definitely looking forward to putting on more workshops, and happy to stay on and answer any questions if anyone's got extra time.
Yeah, thanks, Aidan. It's always such great content and very powerful user experience uplift there for us all. I know I was literally busy, and maybe that's unprofessional, but working alongside you to harness what you were passing across there, because I know from my own personal experience, having been an early adopter to Copilot, is that you really just have to get used to the right way of interacting with it. It's a bit like having this very powerful tool right there with you, but if you don't know how to interact with it well, you might just not be getting the right results that you're looking for. So always great stuff here. And then with that, we are at time, so I would like to thank you all for joining us, and it's always great to see so much interest in this content. And I am just looking in the chat because there's something that's gone on. That's Charlie's putting the poll. That's okay. But we are going to warmly welcome you again in June and July for further content around Microsoft Copilot in Word, and then again in PowerPoint. So a couple more sessions ahead of you there. We hope that you have subscribed to this series so that you don't miss out. And if you haven't, feel free to do so on our website. So thank you. Thank you for joining us, for spending your lunchtime with us. And thank you to Aidan, our special guest. And we look forward to welcoming you all again next month. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone. Appreciate your time.